welcome to Making Sense with Shweta. I'm really glad you are here with me today. And I've been thinking about this idea for a while now, how life over time can make us a little hard, and not in some big, obvious way, but just in those everyday little things that slowly become normal, and we do not even realize that maybe we are reacting a little faster, or maybe we are getting irritated way more easily. And the way we feel uncomfortable when things do not happen the way we had planned, or even the way we keep expecting ourselves to just handle everything. I think a lot of us go through phases where we become like this, and usually it's not random. Sometimes it happens after a lot of stress, or after being disappointed enough times, or after spending much time in situations where being open didn't really feel safe. So, without even realizing it, we become a little more guarded and a little more controlled, a little more prepared for things where we expect that they could go wrong. And after a point it just starts feeling like this is who we are, something that defines us. But sometimes I wonder, is it really who we are, or if it's just something that we have trained ourselves to do? Because I've noticed this thing in myself as well, and there are moments where I catch myself becoming tense over like really small things. For instance, a plan that changed, or someone did not respond to me the way I was expecting them to respond, or something that took just slightly longer than I thought it would. And the reaction itself is never really about that one moment, I feel. It's usually because somewhere inside I've gotten used to holding life a little too tightly. And maybe you have felt that way too. Like there is this constant inner readiness, almost like your mind and your body are always a little braced. Not because anything terrible is going to happen, but it feels like it's just become a habit. And I think this is what happens when we spend too long in survival mode. Even when life becomes safer after, our way of navigating and moving through it does not change immediately, and we still hold ourselves the same way and still expect the worst a little faster, and we still react from defense before giving ourselves a chance to breathe. And I don't feel that this even comes from any kind of weakness. If anything, it comes from having had to be strong for way too long, more than you should have. And maybe there was a phase where staying practical was necessary, where emotions had to wait, or being flexible with yourself did not seem like an option at all. So maybe being soft at that point would have felt like losing control. So naturally, a more rigid version of you stepped in. And that version probably helped because your expectations were much lower, you were always in control, and that felt normal at that point. And that is why I feel that it can feel strange sometimes to even think about softening, because some part of us still believes that the hardness is what keeps everything together. But here's the thing, like I feel like after a while it can also start making normal life feel heavier. You notice it in your expectations and how fixed they have become, or how much discomfort even small unpredictability can create. Someone says something in a wrong tone, or a plan changes last minute, something doesn't happen efficiently, and your whole system just tightens. Like, you can't make any room for that slight deviation. And it's not because it is such a huge problem, it's simply because your mind has gotten used to resisting what it did not plan for. And maybe becoming soft starts in these exact places. And you don't have to change your standards, you don't have to pretend that things do not bother you. But all you have to do is allow a little more room for life just to be life. It's imperfect, it's messy, and misunderstandings happen. Not everything in life goes the way we planned for it to go. And for delays to exist where, without ruining your whole immediate environment, like, we just have to understand that we can't control everything. And I think, like, there are so many places where this can show up, and but there's one particular space where I think it shows up and we do not even notice. And I feel it's where how we deal with ourselves, especially if you are someone who people rely on. You are someone responsible, you are the stable one. And then it leads to this expectation that you have of yourself, that you should always know better, and you should always manage better, and you always have to be calm, and you always have to be composed and productive. And because that becomes your normal, you stop noticing that how exhausting it really is. You make one mistake and your brain immediately becomes very critical. You feel tired, and instead of rest, the first instinct that you feel is of guilt. So, and sometimes something that might take longer than expected, and the reaction that you get from yourself is frustration. And over time, that becomes the emotional climate that you live in. And you may not even realize that that is not something that you want, but it has become a reality for you, it has become familiar, and you don't even know how to change that. So I think the first step, how you can actually address uh, that shift, that change, and how you can bring about that change of becoming soft, just a little softer, is, you know, just noticing the tone of your own inner voice. How do you talk to yourself when no one is around? Are you really harsh? Are you very critical? How quickly do you move into self pressure? And how difficult it feels to let yourself be uncertain, tired, or slower than usual? It's just this enormous weight of responsibility that you feel, and you just can't shake it off. And I think, like, a lot changes when we start bringing just a little more ease in this aspect, in this area of our lives. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and it all you have to do is put a little less pressure on yourself, and give yourself and your mind a little more space to breathe, and show just slightly less urgency in how we relate to everything that we feel and every flaw that we have. And I feel that this matters for everybody, for men, for instance. Sometimes life teaches them to stay emotionally stable all the time, and and they are supposed to care through responsibility but not always through openness, and that I feel can become lonely, after a point. And for women, I think it can show up as being warm in ways where it constantly involves adjustment, and where they have to accommodate even when it's extremely tiring, or when they have to say yes so that no one feels bad, you know. Uh, but I think for all of us, really, it just comes down to one thing, like how tightly are we holding ourselves in our life? And is that tightness, is that bracing still helping us? Or is it now slowly taking away from us? Because sometimes the thing making your life tiring isn't just the situation itself, it's, I feel, the amount of resistance that we bring into it, you know? So I think the first step is to simply notice that where are you bracing? Where do you tense first? And where do you immediately, without any second thought, move into control, criticism, or some form of resistance? So it could be in your plans, it could be in your expectations of people, and maybe it's in expectations of yourself. And just see what happens if in one of those moments, uh, you loosen a little, you just pause and you take a step back and just soak it up and see, are you bracing, are you tensing, or can you just let go of it and see if you can handle that situation in a different way. And I think what's becoming, I think that is like how we become softer in everyday life. You don't have to make any drastic changes, it's very small. uh, just pausing and seeing that, are you really tensing up? Do you need to take a step back and see how you feel about it? Then it doesn't have to be any huge personality change that tomorrow if somebody meets you, they're like, oh my god, this is a whole different person. But it's just about less constant bracing, you know a slightly easier way of being uh, with life as it is. So just do that today and see how you feel after that. Does your body feel lighter? Does your brain feel light enough after you do not step into defense and control? And slowly you will start noticing that, becoming softer is perhaps the only way that we can deal with life more efficiently. Thank you for spending time with me today, and I hope this gives you something to sit with. And maybe sometime, if there comes a moment where you feel a little tense, or you want to be in control, or you brace up, just think about that maybe there is another way to handle it, and give yourself some grace. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode.